So today I have a team building guide for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This is a basic team building guide, no matter the length of this video, because I know it usually go long. Now, if you guys do enjoy this, make sure you let me know by leaving a like and also subscribe, as I upload a bunch of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet content. And I'm not alone. I got my buddy BKC with me. Say hi to the people.
What's up, guys? I'm here to talk your ears off about the best ways to make Pokemon teams.
Literally, that's what we do. We do this every new generation. It's a fantastic thing. And this is a basic guide, so we're going to go more in depth in other ones with more advanced guides, and probably even like how to build hyper offense, how to build stall, how to build, if that's your sort of playstyle. Some people like bulkier playstyles, how to build balance, and we'll be going more and more into that. So again, leave a like, subscribe for more. And Kevin, why don't you tell them the first thing you do when wanting a team build, and then we'll talk about the resources and stuff we have as well.
So the first thing you do, and I promise we'll have concrete examples, but the first thing you do is you decide what the team is going to try and do, or what the team's playstyle is going to be, or what sweeper you're going to center it around, or what kind of strategy you want to use. So it can be anything. Like some people will say you need to start with a Pokemon, but that's too limiting. You can say, oh, well, I think teams are really destroyed by toxic spam. And you can make it your team's goal to spam as much toxic as possible. And then you could add other things like Hex or Scald to complement that. But generally, you figure out what strategy you want to use. You want to use a bunch of Dragon Dance sweepers, a bunch of toxic users, whatever, and then you try to make the best version of that.
Exactly.
I mean, there are no wrong ways to make teams technically, because there are also players who literally just slam together the best Pokemon in the metagame, and they do pretty well because the Pokemon are nice, and they work so well individually that they wind up working well as a unit. But generally, if you have an idea of what you want the team to do, and then you just make the team try and accomplish that goal, you will get somewhere.
Yep.
I will also add, that you don't want to go all in on one Pokemon generally. Like, if you're going for a King Gambit sweep or whatever, that's fine, but you can't hinge your entire game plan on King Gambit winning for you, because sometimes you are just going to have matchups where King Gambit runs into 3 or 4 checks, and going for a King Gambit sweep is not going to be good. So you need to have a team that can adapt in battle and come up with different strategies depending on what you're facing, as opposed to dedicating your other 5 Pokemon to setting up the perfect King Gambit conditions. Pokemon that work well with each other, but also that work well individually. And that's why that strategy where a bunch of good Pokemon smashed together on one team generally works, because the Pokemon are so independently useful. Now, if you could have a combination of they work together in tandem perfectly and also are individually useful, then that's just ideal, obviously. But it's important to not get caught up in trying to make a team do one and only one thing.
Yeah, and one thing you also want to notice is that, and I say this every single time we do a team builder, but no team is perfect. Your team is not going to be able to deal with all 6 Pokemon, all potential combinations of 6 Pokemon out there. However, in Scarlet and Violet specifically, there are some ways to get around your limitation of 6 Pokemon in the form of terrestrialization, right? So my Quagsire, which could only previously stop physical attackers because of unaware, would lose to grass, but now I could make it terrestrialize steel type and deal with the grass setup Pokemon too. So there are a lot of options when coming in. And BKC really said that you want to figure out what the Mon wants to do, or you're not limited. So just like, oh, I want to build around Dunsparce. Okay, you're not limited at that. Like, what do you want that type of team to do? In this situation though, we do have a Pokemon we have in mind, right? And it was Roaring Moon. That's the Mon you want to use, correct?
Yes, choice band Roaring Moon, because I want to spam super powerful crunches and just destroy everything.
So in this case, we have the idea.
To have a team that works with. I should also mention that you are going to have weaknesses with whatever your team is, but it's generally a good idea to try and make your weaknesses those that you can play around in battle. So a classic example from the days of Gen 4 is that no team truly safely counters Infernape, right? Or Salamence, or whatever. But you don't beat those Pokemon by slamming on a hard counter. You don't beat Garchomp by using Cresselia on every team. You have to learn how to beat these Pokemon by playing the game, as opposed to just having a hard counter for them in the team builder. Because sometimes you are going to lose that hard counter. In battle, for example, I was playing earlier today, and my opponent I had a bunch of opponents using Corviknight, so on paper they were fine against low kicks, and then they lose their Corviknight and they need to start playing around low kicks as opposed to just, well, I lost my Corviknight, so the game is over. So team building comes from playing the game and being observant of the game you play.
Yeah, as long as you
Because
have
get that
outs.
experience, and yeah,
Yeah.
the experience helps you, because there's so many times where you make a team that's beautiful and perfect on paper, and then you get into the actual battle and you notice how it can't actually play the game. So the best teams are the ones that can just play the game generally, as opposed to the ones that need everything to go their way, because those are going to fall apart against a good player.
Yeah, so when you look at this team and you be like, let's say we ended up doing 6 dragons, and you say, wow, this team gets folded by fairy types. But in battle, maybe we made the team have Iron Head and Poison Jab and Terrasilize Steel. So we gave ourselves outs and ways to break through those to open up for the other doors. So there's it's so much more than just, this is what I lose to on paper and this is what this team can do. So you give yourself ways to actually deal with it. And the Fernip was a great example because it's a Pokemon that not very many Pokemon can switch into, but it's also a Pokemon that has to deal with hazards in Gen 4, sand, priority, and being slower than Starmie and things like that. So there's a lot of Pokemon and there's a lot of options here. What they also want to say is that we're going to be linking this viability thread down below. And this is like a kind of like a, they're not really guidelines, just there to give you keep in mind what Pokemon are being used right now, because honestly you can use anything. It's the start of a generation. We're only like a week and some change into the generation. You can use whatever you want. This just gives you an idea of what other people are using, and it makes you just be able to look at like what's being thrown in the ladder, and gives you an idea of like, okay, what my team needs to be prepared for. So
another thing to keep in mind is that when you're tweaking your team to be better against opposing threats, like, yes, sometimes you will need to put on a dedicated counter to a certain Pokemon if your team is otherwise completely ripped apart by it. But it's generally better if, when you're making those changes, as opposed, like, let's say if we had that 6 dragon team, just for example's sake, it's ridiculous. You're obviously not going to actually run 6 dragons, but let's just say, right? So let's just say we have those 6 dragons and we lose to whatever fairy type, Iron Valiant, let's say. So are we going to say, okay, well, we need to run the hardest Iron Valiant counter in the game, whatever that is, in our 6th slot? Or can we do things like run Roselli Berry on our dragons so that they can continue to be threatening and take away Pokemon that Iron Valiant comes in on for free? Because, and this is a lot of what playing the game is about, because if you just slam on hard counters, then you're going to be playing very reactively. And if you're using an offensive team, you need to think about the scenarios where you're going to be facing certain opposing offensive Pokemon, and you can then adapt your move set to that. And Terra Sterilization is a perfect example of this, because I said Roselli Berry, but a much easier example would just be, Terra Steel, and then suddenly your dragon type
it's no longer weak to fairy.
Is resistant to fairy as opposed to weak to it.
Exactly.
So
and you don't even have to do a move
that,
slot to do that. That's just that's kind of like a 5th move slot almost, in a sense.
Exactly.
That
So as opposed to trying to be more active than reactive.
Yeah.
If you can help it, obviously. And if you're running stall, then it's something else entirely. But if you're running an offensive team and the goal of your team is to bowl the opponent over with as much offense as you can muster, then you are being counterproductive by throwing on that Cresselia or whatever you end up using.
Yeah, I also want to note that no team is like done when it's done, right? You can the testing phase. I barely, for those that play in game, I really suggest building your team on Pokemon Showdown and testing it on the ladder before you end up making the team in game or whatever, breeding your Pokemon or leveling up and EV training them, do whatever, just so you can figure out what you like, what you don't like, and what works. Maybe we start off with Roaring Moon, and again, for the example's sake, 6 dragons, and we realize, we're really weak to Chien-Pao. We're really weak to Gargonacl when it terrasilizes Fairy. What can we do to keep the integrity of the team, but make us not weak to that, right? Because if I want to use 6 dragons or whatever, or a dragon team, I don't want to, there's very little room for compromise there. But what can I do to, again, help me versus that? So again, the testing phase is going to be very important too. So we'll have this video, and then eventually I'll have a Showdown Live featuring the team, and you'll see that we might actually end up making some changes in that.
It's also important to remember for anyone out there who's a writer, then you will be familiar with this concept. But there's something where you have to kill your darlings, and it's because not every team, as if you care about being competitive. If you don't, then you can use whatever you want, obviously. But if you care about making a good team, a successful team, a team that can take on the metagame, then not everything is going to be able to do that to the same level of success. And sometimes you are going to have to throw out a team, because if you like have a team of 6 Pokemon and then like 5 of them are replaced and the 6th Pokemon has had its moveset completely altered and it's effectively a different team, then if you can most ideas are worth maintaining the original concept of, right? But sometimes an idea just doesn't work out. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a failure at all, because it's a learning experience. You know why something doesn't work now. That can help you make better teams in the future. But you have to know when you have to make that clean break and say, okay, this team is just not worth it. I know what I learned from it. Like most of the teams I've made in my Pokemon career, I did not end up using because they were bad. But all those teams that were bad, I knew why they were bad and why they weren't working, and then that made me, better at making the teams that I did.
That actually good and successful. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, but remember, don't be afraid to get rid of that initial team, because if you force it, if you want to make it work because you love the original idea, then you're just doing yourself a disservice by hanging on to it even though it's not working. Know when to call it and then try again from the beginning. You don't even necessarily have to throw out the idea. Just identify what's not working, what everything you can't fit in is, and then start from the beginning.
Yeah, you can even save a copy of that team and go back to it later after you've understood why it wasn't working, and then you play it a little bit more to figure out what the metagame is like. And then like, oh, okay, so this can work now because this Pokemon just got banned. And I mean, this is a good example, right? Roaring Moon gets better because both Iron Bundle and Palafin just got banned on Pokemon Showdown. So this mon no longer has to deal with the Super Jet Punch that gets with its bad defense stat, and the obviously super effective Ice Beams that come out from Iron Bundle. So yeah, it's just there's a lot of little concepts. I know it's the intro for like 12 minutes, but these are the basic understandings of what you need in order to build. As you get this, you'll start to be able to do this like that. Right, and these principles will be burned in you, and you can even
experience is really important. Yeah, and there are no shortcuts. There really, really aren't. All the best team builders I know from my however long playing competitive Pokemon, they were not good team builders overnight. They made a lot of garbage before they made anything good.
I also want to note that taking other people's teams and using them, and then figure out some principles from there also make your teams better too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like if you see someone else's teams, then you think, oh my god, that's an amazing team. This has happened a lot. Sometimes I'll be like, that team looks really good, and then I try it and I see, oh, so this is why it works, and this is also why it doesn't work. And then it's more knowledge or experience to incorporate into your own stuff.
Exactly. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to actually just start, that's also if you just want to get into competitive Pokemon, take other people's teams and play. That's one of the biggest things. So
playing, it helps so much. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we already know we want to use Roaring Moon in this set. Now, you don't always have to start with the set of the Pokemon and everything, too, but we know what we want to use, and we're excited about it. Can we just put it here just to give it as an example?
No, yeah, I could go in there. And make it Adamant, too.
Of course we're going Adamant for power. So, like, why would you go Adamant over Jolly on this? So, there's if you actually look at the metagame itself, right, there's other Pokemon. These are the Pokemon we miss out. We miss out on opposing Roaring Moon if we don't go Jolly. Masquerade, I believe, is a speed tie, if I'm not mistaken.
Meowscarada is also
it's also faster. It's faster. Yeah, it's also not very strong.
Consider it's like ridiculous example.
Is it amazing?
But in Gen 4, or sorry, if Gen 5, if I'm going to use Garchomp, right, and I want to make it Adamant, but oh no, I get outsped by Charizard. It's like, well, I don't care, because if I get outsped by Charizard, I'm facing Charizard, who's terrible.
Yeah, but if you go up to Gen 8, where if you get outsped by Urshifu, that's a pretty big one.
That's bad. Yes, that's bad. That is, like, there are certain Pokemon that you can afford to be outsped by. And I think Meowscarada is one, because Meowscarada is kind of not.
Yeah, it's not that amazing right now. And the main reason we want to use Roaring Moon, because the idea behind the team is using Roaring Moon to punch holes into defensive cores like Corviknight and Toxapex and Clodsire, etc. Mainly because
it seems like Dark Stab is so threatening, like with King Gambit and the tinted lens thing, the bug dark, low kicks.
Low kicks,
And
yes.
so, and if you have like more immediate power, like I would be interested in like CB King's Gambit too. But I think with Ments or Roaring Moon, sorry, then you have so much power because it's so strong, and you have the photosynthesis boost, and it's fast, even
Exactly.
with an adamant nature.
Yeah, even with
So it's
animation, there's only
more,
a few
yeah,
Pokemon that already you like. Iron Valiant already outspeeds you because of this, but Iron Valiant's another mon that runs booster energy, so there's a chance that this mon outspeeds you regardless, unless you're running the boost thing yourself. And
yeah.
again, we want to use this to break through packs, Corviknight, and stuff like that, and that's why we're using a choice band set, which will boost us 1.5 times.
Like immediately. That's another thing about because like I've seen some players say, well, why run CB when you can run Dragon Dance and be just as strong and faster after a boost? And the
It
answer
requires a
is,
turn.
yeah, and every turn is crucial. You think, oh, one turn, not big deal. It is a big deal. When you have that instant power, that gives you a lot of in-game flexibility because suddenly you don't need that free turn, which you're often not going to get and against so many of the Pokemon that can threaten you otherwise. Like with an instant CB boost, you can immediately threaten out way more Pokemon than you would that you're not going to be able to KO without a DD. So I like just the spammability of Dark Stab right now, and CB Roaring Moon seems like the best way to do it, or not the best way, but one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah, and we're gonna go max attack because we want to have the most damage output possible, right? We're aiming for a
Yeah.
Pokemon that has no switch-ins. We go max speed because this gives us over base 100s. This gives us over Garchomp, right? So that's why we go speed on this. Like, and then in the more a more intricate or intermediate advanced team builder, we'll have like a damage calc where we're talking about how you pick your EV specifically, and then you look at the meta game and you want to do this. But this is what we want with this Pokemon. This gives it the most consistent ability to do that. And in terms of moves, right? You can typically look on this and it'll give you like suggested moves, and then you can look at other usually useless moves, but they're not always useless. Like they have Scale Shot here, but Scale Shot isn't a bad move, right? It's a good move. It boosts your speed. If it had Swords Dance, it's something
Yeah.
we could run. But
It's yeah, generally it's a good initial guideline.
exactly,
Because like once you get into like super fancy stuff, then you start thinking, well, technically Giga Impact would not be so bad here. But you know, I wouldn't overthink it at first.
exactly. We want to click Crunch because Dark is very hard to be resisted, and we already know we want Terra type Dark. This Pokemon typically with Dragon Dance will run Terra type Flying to have Acrobatic Stab. But we want Terra type Dark because even resistances, we're choice band, we're boosted instead of 1.5, we're 2 times because of the Terra type. We also lose our Ice immunity, or Ice resist, excuse me, when we do that, and also we're now only 2 times weak to Fairy, which actually does make a difference with 101 special defense versus that. And we can click a move that has a 20% chance to lower the opponent's defense. This is what we want out of this Pokemon. And from there, you kind of go, what coverage, what can you expect to come in, what does this help you deal with? So I want to say, and this is kind of like a basic guideline, but generally if a Pokemon learns Earthquake and it has good attack, and you're using an offensive version of it, Earthquake is great, right?
Yeah,
Earthquake
you
is,
can't go wrong with Earthquake, really.
yeah, Earthquake
And
is...
if you want specific targets, then you can look at Clodsire
yeah, exactly.
and Toxapex.
So you look at the vibe. You look at what people are running, right? There's King Gambit, so that's something that resists Dark. We want to be able to Earthquake that. There's Toxapex, as we
And
mentioned.
Dragon at that, yeah.
Exactly. There's Clodsire, as we mentioned. There's Toxapex. There's Tyranitar, which otherwise resists Dark as well. So it just basically gives you that coverage. Chi-Yu resists Dark too, even though it takes like a 2 KO from Crunch. But it's just an idea, like to give you some type of coverage versus those opponents. So Earthquake and that. I also want to note, like, how do you pick between Dragon Claw and Outrage on a Fairy? Typically, because our game plan with this thing is going to be, and this is what we already decided, we want to be able to just spam Crunch. If we click Outrage, it lessens that ability, because if we click Outrage, even though it's 120, we're locked in. So being locked in means that the opponent has a chance to knock us out. If they go out to a Steel type, they can do a ton of damage. Or if they go out to like a physically defensive Pokemon, they can do a ton of damage. So I don't like, in this situation where we're running Choice Band, we're not running Dragon Dance, right? Where we're trying to end game sweep. We're trying to get as much damage as possible and get out. I don't like Outrage as much. I rather have the weaker Dragon Claw, but it still gives me the ability to click a move and decide from there, right? What I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the point is not to spam Dragon in a metagame with Fairy types.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
this is not Gen 5. The whole point is that Dragon is a great stab, still for sure, but I mean, this is such a strong Pokemon, you do not need the extra power. It's just an easy risk reward, because the reward of Outrage is like, yeah, do you really need this extra power? No, you don't. And do you want to be locked in and have an easier time getting picked off? No, absolutely not. So,
Yep. And then, I mean, we were going all physical because this is a physical attacker. I mean, we already know we're going U-turn as the last move. But if we look through its moves, there's not a lot of physical attacks besides maybe Iron Head. Iron Head is also a viable option for if you want to just get the straight up KO on fairies. But right here, we're liking U-turn because U-turn allows us to provide momentum for our team, and that's very important. It also
U-turn is also one of those moves that if a Pokemon can learn it, it's generally a good idea to have it.
yeah.
Like, you can strike a balance between, oh, I'm using this move specifically for this scenario, or you can have that strategy where you say, oh, I'm using U-turn because it's an amazing move, and it's going to give me a lot of flexibility and a lot of matchups.
Yeah,
So
and that's
why
a
you
big
use
thing.
Stealth Rock. Yeah, you use Stealth Rock, yes, because it weakens like a flying weak Pokemon that don't run boots, obviously. But you also use Stealth Rock just because it's always good.
Yeah, you always get extra damage on your opponent. And that's kind of like I like U-turn a lot too because it's something like, okay, I have an opponent out in front of me, and then they have a Pokemon in the back that if I lock myself in a crunch, it's bad for them. But if I go for the prediction on that and I stay and I can lose my Roaring Moon, U-turn's like the mid ground, right? If the Pokemon stays in, I see that and I can go to whatever Pokemon I have on my team that can deal with that. If they switch out, I get to feel I see that and I can again go to whatever Pokemon I want. It's like a drawback free for the most part. You know, there's Rocky Helmet, there's Iron Barbs, there's things that not this. There's no Iron Barbs right now, but there's Rocky
Just
Helmet.
the upsides are so huge that you really want to have it if possible.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, this is the set we want to run. Like we've already decided on this. This is half the builder. So now we figure out what we can do to support this, what we can do to get this to work, what we can do that helps deal with the Pokemon that are running around right now in the metagame. And
Another helpful way to look at it, because like I'm thinking right now, because I don't have like an exact answer of where I want to go with this, but it might help because sometimes you have so many options. You're like, where do I go? So sometimes it helps narrow it down a little if you ask yourself, okay, what's the wrong way to do it? So like I think the wrong way to make use of a CB Roaring Moon would be to surround it with a bunch of super bulky walls, right? Like if we're running like Mola, Moongus, Blissey, Clodsire kind of stuff, like are we really using CB Roaring Moon
this
in
mod
its
to its best
environment?
potential.
We're probably not. So I'm not saying we necessarily need to go hyper offense because I think we are going to need to be able to switch around a little bit because it is a choice band Pokemon, and as strong as choice band Pokemon are, or choice Pokemon in general, then they are going to give free switches just by virtue of locking into moves that get resisted. So I think we're going to want to keep up an offensive pace, but we're going to want to switch into Pokemon decently.
Yeah, and
So like there are some styles of hyper offense which just like never switch at all. It's like I set up hazards, then I go to sweeper 1, then I go to sweeper 2, and so on and so forth. And I do not. So I think that would be another wrong way to do this because those kinds of teams that don't switch, they don't use choice Pokemon.
yeah,
Because choice
they
Pokemon-
benefit more from a setup Roaring Moon, if anything.
So I think we want to have like a more bulky offense balance.
Yeah, that's what
style
I was about to
approach.
say. That yeah, we want to go for
Yeah.
that. And I mean, I already have a couple things in mind when looking at this, right? So like, what is something that lets Roaring Moon do its thing without even thinking about any particular Pokemon? Hazards are the first thing that comes to mind, right? Stealth Rock and Spike allow this Pokemon to repeatedly click Crunch and U-turn and actually get something
with
out of
like
it.
rocks and spikes. I don't think even something as bulky as like King Gambit would be
Switching
willing
it
to
multiple
switch
times, exactly. Especially if
Yeah.
that U-turned as it came in, so it's already taking like 20-something%, plus the
Exactly.
hazards as well. And then if you actually go, and if you even, and this comes from also knowing the metagame, but if you are bringing hazards, there's one Pokemon in particular that is so good in this metagame at helping keep your hazards up, and we'll probably end up using that on this team too. But we'll get into that when the time comes. But I think we can both agree that hazards are very important with this, and Stealth Rock and
Always,
Spike are
always.
it. So.
Like, you got to have your hazards, yeah. I mean,
So-
there are some select few teams that are like hardcore stall that you don't need hazards or something. But I generally, this is not that kind of team. You
Yeah.
want your hazards.
Agreed.
Another thing I would keep in mind, I don't have any concrete examples, but if you have a big hitter like this, then you want to get it on the field as much as possible, right? And Roaring Moon does not have the best defensive profile. I mean, its typing is fine, its HP is good, but its defense is really low. And you generally don't want it switching into a lot of attacks if you want it to be dishing out the attacks itself. You want to keep it relatively healthy. So I think surrounding it with switch moves would be really helpful.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
like, one thing that comes to mind is Corviknight, because they have some decent defensive synergy, because Corviknight comes in on fairy moves, and then Corviknight can U-turn out of whatever, and then free switch for Roaring Moon.
Yeah, I agree. I think Corviknight's a fantastic one. I think this is also one of the ways you can go. And I think there's a few. Again, this might change too. So I think Corviknight's a really good
Slowking would
placeholder.
be another example.
Yeah, because Slowking has the hail move to get it out of there, which is
Yes,
nice.
it does.
Doesn't have
Yeah.
teleport anymore. But
Yeah, it has. So Slowking also has great. Actually, Slowking has amazing synergy because it also resists fighting for Roaring Moon. So I think one of Slowking or
Corviknight really works.
Corviknight would be really nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe both, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
yeah,
There also, when you're in the process of team building, you don't necessarily have to add Pokemon by Pokemon. You can think, okay, maybe one of those two. I'll come back to this. I'll see where I'm gonna go with it.
exactly. And that's actually what I want to do right here too, because I want to figure out what I want. Because with that core, we're gonna want spikes. We're gonna want Stealth Rock. So what I do in
Yeah.
Pokemon Showdown is I type spikes.
Sorry, you can also make multiple versions of a team. Like
Exactly.
for example, like right now I'm thinking, oh, you can have the Corviknight version, then you can have the Slowking version.
Yeah, I could copy it and make a different version of it too, and see which one works out. So Corvi is obviously something we keep in mind. But yeah, something like Spikes or Stealth Rock are going to be obviously. I can even put Stealth Rock and Spike just because you can filter it this way. So you can filter both, and obviously Garchomp's going to come out here. Clodsire is going to come out here. Fortress is going to come out here. Like all these, they gave it to so many mons, by the way, dude. They gave Stealth Rock.
I
And Spike to
know.
so
I
many
heard
Mon.
like
It's-
Gastrodon and stuff has it. It's
Yeah,
nuts.
Tinglu is a good Pokemon too. That sets up hazards as well. So there's so many things we can go here. One of the most common Pokemon right now is Glimmora as a lead because it sets up Stealth Rock, and also with its Toxic Debris ability, it sets up Toxic Spike when you hit it with a physical move as well. But there's a lot we can do here. So this is something I think we can keep in mind as well. Chomp is good, but obviously we're doubling down on that Dragon weakness, but that's okay, right? Like you don't have to say
That
like,
can be fine. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like that's another thing. Like I know in the guidebooks they handed out back in the day for in-game Pokemon, they were like, do not run 2 fire types on one team because then you will be weak to water and earthquake. And it's like, yeah, this is okay. It's generally a nice idea, but not all types are the same in terms of weaknesses. Like you'll see a lot of teams doubling or even tripling up on like steel types, and steel types have a lot of resist and not too many weaks, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So you can definitely stack up on dragon types for sure. You just have to be very careful. Like I made a team just a few hours ago that has 2 dragon types, I think. Yeah, Garchomp and what's the other one? Garchomp and Cyclizar, yeah. And so that means that I got to really watch out for ice and fairy and dragon. So I have 2 steel types and a fairy type. So
Yeah, and even in those situations, you got to look at it a little bit further too. Like Cyclizar, it might be a dragon, but it's not really doing dragon things. It's spamming Shed Tail and Rapid Spinning, knocking off, U-turning. So like, yeah, it might be a dragon, but it's not like you're using it and you're getting put down by Ice Shard because you're trying to set up and sweep with it. So the Pokemon are more than just their typings. They're way more than just their typings, and especially in a terrestrialization meta, they're way more than their original typings too, because they can do a lot. So we can really figure out here. But I agree. I think the whole U-turn thing is really good, and I really do like the idea of Corviknight. Corviknight's really good in this metagame in general. It also helps us out versus, exactly. Yeah. It helps us out versus Chien Pao.
U-turn, spikes, and then something. I think we want some more offensive options, because sometimes I've noticed a trap I fall into a lot is when I'm building an offensive team and I fill it with so much support that I forget to actually add the offense.
Yeah.
So something that can really take advantage of Roaring Moon, just busting stuff up. Now, this does not necessarily mean a setup sweeper. Just something that can reliably do a lot of fast damage at the end of games to put your opponent in those checkmate positions.
And if we want
like,
fast
this could
damage,
be a strong Scarfer or just like a naturally fast offensive Pokemon. Like Iron Valiant would probably be a great example, because a lot of those dark resists, then I think they're first of all, they're Pokemon that Iron Valiant utterly destroys. And second of all, like those weakened teams that you drop them into range for Iron Valiant to just switch in.
It's actually it's actually a perfect example, because I mean, if you think of our targets for Roaring Moon, it's Corviknight, right, which resists Moonblast. It's Toxapex, which resists Moonblast and fighting. It's Clodsire, which was just Moonblast and fighting. So like they actually pair super well. So like Iron Valiant is automatically something, and I'm thinking like even special instead of the physical one because I love special Moonblast sets.
Yeah, just specs is just so silly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so powerful too, and it just allows you to like, guys. This Pokemon is one of they finally brought it back. Mixed attackers. Like this is something that we haven't seen in so long.
Knockoff earlier, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. They literally brought back mixed attackers, like, and this is an amazing thing as well. And there's and that's just something like we could think of like too, because so this is like primarily I like this core a lot. And this can easily be as you mentioned choice specs, and we could change this up to booster energy and figure out situations like if we find ourselves.
Yeah, remember, nothing is set in stone.
Yeah,
you know?
but this is just something we're thinking of. And generally, with a choice specs Pokemon, we want to be fast so we can get off more attacks. We want to be strong so we can do more damage. Like, that's really typical. And you see fighting and fairy. So what is the best fairy move I can go for? Literally the best move in the game, or one of the best moves in the game, Moonblast. 95 power, 100 accuracy, good PP, 30% chance to drop the target, right? Can't miss.
Yeah, a lot of like EVing is like a whole, like that's its own whole video. But I assure you, there are great players out there who genuinely believe that there is no reason to run any EV spread besides max.
252.
So, like, I personally don't believe that myself, but I will also tell you that it's hard to go wrong with such a spread.
Yep. when they're Kevin will use EVs in every single slot, but he'll have calcs and everything, damage calcs and situations to back it up.
3 hours in the calc sometimes. It's so peaceful. It's relaxing. But that's me, right? And it's other players that are like, I'm just gonna like Blunder. You know, do you think Blunder's ever made an EV spread that's not max? I'm kidding. I love you, Blunder. But he's generally not worse off because he doesn't throw EVs in 4 or 5 stats.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's nothing. As long as the EVs have a purpose, you're good. And with this scenario, we're a choice specs breaker. We're a wall breaker. We're trying to just do as much damage as possible with it, and we're taking advantage of the fact that Roaring Moon, when it U-turns out. We get an Iron Valley and we can click Moonblast too. So like typically that's something, and this set is not set in stone, right? We can use whatever on this, but Moonblast is there, and then we have the option between Aura Sphere and Focus Blast, of course. Obviously we could run mix with Close Combat, but on choice specs I would still rather like either Focus Blast.
Oh, it's Aura Sphere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So Aura Sphere is the option if you don't want to miss Focus Blast. Personally, in this meta game,
Aura Sphere. Focus Blast is
you don't
running Focus Blast when Aura Sphere is available to you is like immoral.
My only thing with that is that you miss out on like Blissey's actually gets cooked. Like
we'll have spikes.
Okay, we'll figure it out. So we can run Aura Sphere. Use Focus Blast, guys. But you can use Aura Sphere on this if you want to. And then from there, it's kind of like
Focus Blast if you like losing, yeah,
or winning fast. Or losing fast, basically. And then your other options for special attacks, like right, again, we could run a mix with Close Combat, which is completely fine. But your other option for special attack is what is going to come in on this Pokemon. Well, Toxapex Wall is this dual stab. What can we do if it's set to be able to deal with that? Well, it has Psychic and Thunderbolt. Well, if we run Thunderbolt, we also hit Corviknight, right, for a lot of damage, and we hit bulky
Thunderbolt
waters in general.
is definitely a better coverage option in general.
Yes, it's just good, and especially in the Palafin meta. Palafin isn't in there anymore. But Thunderbolt will still let you hit Corviknight plus Toxapex in one. Terrestrializing, Water, Garganackle, and stuff like that for super effective damage. There's a lot of Pokemon that this ends up hitting. The only thing that Psychic would hit for more would be the combination of Toxapex plus Clodsire. But because we're using Clodsire, we're using Roaring Moon to break through those, we can kind of figure out like from there what's better. And then our last move, one option, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this, and this is about terrestrializing the team builder. One Pokemon that resists Moonblast is immune to Aura Sphere, and it's super common, is Goldengo, right? So Goldengo is one of the really, really common metagame Pokemon. It's an incredible Pokemon because Good as Gold blocks status. It blocks Defog as well. And actually, that was a Pokemon that I was hinting at, that if we use spikes and stuff, this is an amazing Pokemon to have on because it blocks Rapid Spin, it blocks Mortal Spin, it blocks Defog. So it's basically, it is there to stop the opponent from getting up or stopping our game plan, in a sense. Right, like the opponent wants to get rid of our hazards and deal with them, so they'll be stopping our game plan. So
I think Specs Terra Blast of some type would be pretty great in general because it gives you another stab essentially.
Exactly.
And choiced Pokemon are all about spamming stab.
Yep.
Like yeah, you can run coverage, but it's not going to be as strong. So
and that's why why one move that this mon sometimes runs is Shadow Ball, and it can run it with Terra Ghost, and Terra Ghost Shadow Ball will allow you to deal with the Goldengo upon switching.
Regular Terra Blast?
A Shadow Ball just is general, just strong. Like it's just a good move.
Okay. Oh, right? Is there no difference effectively?
They're 80. They're both 80. This one can
Okay,
get us
then
this one
yes,
get us
run
that.
Shadow Ball.
Yeah, but
Then run Shadow Ball because you can still use it even if Mence Terras.
yes. But the other option is, and that's exactly what my scenario was. The other option is going Terra type Fairy because Moonblast is such a broken move that being pure Fairy and having the 2 times to the 1.5 is really good. If we were running this with Booster Energy, which gets the speed boost, I would hella go Terra type Ghost so we can knock out Godengo with Moonblast and the Shadow Ball, right?
Yeah,
But
I mean, this is something that you would test and see what works for you. And like, if you see like you're playing a bunch of games and you're never clicking Thunderbolt, like just as an example, you can say, you know, I'm gonna get rid of Thunderbolt and I'm gonna throw on Psychic or Knockoff or something.
exactly.
You know, Knockoff gets rid of Blissy's boots and then you destroy it with spikes. You know, just as an example. And then you find, hey, that's more useful than Thunderbolt was for me. So, you know, nothing beats experience as long as you can translate it to the team builder somehow.
Yep.
And
that's a
I
big
will
thing.
be right back because I have to go to the bathroom.
No problem. All right, so we're back. So yeah, basically what Kev said, experience helps you out. If you find yourself facing combinations of Clodsire, if it's Toxapex, and it's a little bit more annoying for you, if they're constantly coming in, throw on Spec Psychic or Psyshock, and then you'll be able to deal with that. I think Psyshock is actually, assuming it's still, it doesn't get Psyshock. Yeah, it does. Psyshock might even be better just because Clodsire runs special defensive at the moment. So you'll be doing like 80%. It was something that Fluttermane used to run to be able to deal with that as well. So we have our 2 you can't switch into Pokemon together, right? So now I think it's good to focus on the core you were talking about that gets them in and that also offers some sort of defensive backbone. So you want to take over Corviknight real quick? Or
Corviknight, I think we got U-Turn, Roost, and then, well, if we're spiking, then I don't think we're going to want to be defogging very much. Yeah, because if we're gonna want to deal with T-Spikes, just so we don't have, you know, Roaring Moon and Iron Valiant both affected by T-Spikes, then it's probably better to throw on a grounded Poison type as opposed to trying to defog them, because that's a losing proposition.
yeah, or even just a Rapid Spinner in general, like, could work.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we can go with, like, Cyclizar or something.
Yes.
Or we can use Glamora for our hazards.
Yeah, or Great Tusk with heavy duty boots to ignore.
Oh, even better, yeah. So, with Corviknight, you want to pick whether you want to... I think generally Corviknight with Taunt is really good because it contributes to... I mean, it shuts down a little bit of everything. But I think it's generally best when you can shut down a defensive Pokemon doing defensive things, like Garganacl or however you say it.
Yeah.
And then you pick between Brave Bird and Body Press.
So, I like Body Press because this scenario, this is really weak to Ice, and Qianpao is a giant threat, so Body Press gives us means
and
to
you
knock
can
it
never
out.
be too safe against like King Gambit.
Exactly.
So Body Press, and then I mean I like Brave Bird's coverage, so you could theoretically do Body Press
Brave
and
Bird,
Brave Bird.
Roost, U-turn. Yeah, I honestly and even then, if you don't care about listing out on Ghost, the other option is making this not a threat. We go Iron Defense. You know, make us be an option that could actually break through Pokemon.
That's true.
So these are all like basically options as Pokemon.
Yeah, that one I don't think there's any super correct answer to yet.
Yes, we can even just keep this open.
I do generally like Brave Bird's coverage because I have low kicks on the brain right now. But I mean, it could be, you know, anything. Like Iron Valiant is another really big reason to run Brave Bird.
Yeah.
That thing destroyed me so many times. So I am paranoid about that. So I think this is fine for now. And if you find yourself, or if we find ourselves, you know, we can always change it.
Yeah, easily. And then we can figure out, okay, what do we need to run this for? Like, obviously, Body Press sets usually want to run more physically defensive, and we want it for Qianpao as well, so physically defensive makes sense. But then also, we don't want our team to lose to Godengo. The good thing is, because Iron Bundle is no longer here, you don't really have to run max special defense anymore to be able to not be, you know, taken out by that. So we go 248 because, you know, leftovers, rock number or whatever, but max is usually fine. 2, I like pressure, but
I think divisible by 8 is what you want to avoid.
Yeah. So pressure is a cool ability because obviously the opponent has less PP, and even like, I mean, Roost only has 8 PP now too, but combined with pressure, like if your opponent can only go for, not in Moonblast case, right? But Shadow Ball, they can only go for 12 Shadow Balls, and you have 8, and you only have to Roost every third time. Like you're fine. in that situation, even with 8 Roost. So that's a situation. The other thing is Mirror Armor is a decent ability too, but I was better, I think, in the Flutter main era when they were spamming Shadow Ball and could 2-shot you. So I like the pressure ability, and I like this, and I think we can kind of figure out what EVs we want to go later, and kind of just go.
I would just calc against the ice thing and then
figure
go
out
from there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
and with leftovers, obviously, leftovers is really important.
yeah, I like leftovers right now too. I think it's.
I mean, the helmet is nice, but I don't know.
The lack of knockoff, I like leftovers. I
mean, the survivability is so much. There's so much of a difference when you don't have to manually heal yourself.
Yeah.
Especially when you're using Brave Bird. So.
No, I agree. I think we can keep it at this and then figure out, like, if we.
So another Pokemon on my mind. Well, there's a couple. So Cyclizar is another one because it's stupid.
And it provides rabbits and
beyond being stupid, it also helps get rid of hazards, and it's a
Shadow Ball immunity.
It's another switch move that gets in the big two, the banned Pokemon and the Specs Pokemon. So it does a lot in one slot.
Yeah.
So that's one thing on my mind. Because we're trying to fulfill the strategy of get these big hitters on the field as much as possible. So yeah, you could run the Donphan, the ground fighting one.
Great Tusk.
But yeah, you could run that and spin, and it'd be great, obviously, because it's still Donphan. But I'm wondering if Cyclizar is maybe not the optimal choice or whatever, but maybe we want to go with it just because it continues our strategy of getting the guys in as much as they possibly can.
And it also, as we mentioned before, provides rapid spin support, which is cool. And not to mention that it actually is something that can annoy Godengo by knocking off its choice scarf and doing that. So like.
It's immune to shadow. Yeah, that's really important. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I like Cyclizar.
This is my favorite set. I actually don't like the scarf set as much as I like this. I think you get so much utility. This is basically everything you want out of a utility mon, right? You get the baton pass, you get the U-turn, you get the knockoff, you get the wrap. It's the ultimate utility Pokemon.
Oh, do you not use taunt over U-turn?
So the reason I like U-turn is just for the same reason. If we have up spikes and I don't want to predict and I can't go for Shed Cell, I like that. Okay. But taunt's obviously an option here too.
Because I was also thinking another Pokemon is obviously Goldengo because we're looking at spikes, and I mean we also don't have any.
We don't have a spiker yet either. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends, but we can. I like U-turn. I like U-turn. No, you're right. Because sometimes you're going to want... I mean, talk about having more switch moves, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think the Heavy Duty Boots is one of the best items on it because you have Regenerator, so you're constantly coming in. Shed Cell is constantly taking 50%. It lets you get back and forth, lets you use Regenerator as many times. And Boots allows you to ignore spikes and toxic spikes and things like that. Basically, you're able to do your main thing as many times as possible because of Heavy Duty Boots plus Regenerator plus Shed Cell. So I like this better than Leftovers. I like this better than Citrus Berry. Or whatever berry you want to run. I think this is like one of the stronger sets for it. And if we're playing this, we definitely have to be careful versus Iron Valley and stuff with this team because we are limited on our last 2 slots. So there's a few weaknesses that I'm looking at that like we have to make sure we let this guy do its thing, but also not lose to like Chi-Yu and Pokemon like that too. So
yeah. So I think we got to get the spikes in there, probably on the same Pokemon that's gonna rock. I mean, I guess it depends on what our options are for the spikers, but we got to start like making sure we get the resists in there.
Exactly.
I also like Cyclizar because it's also fast.
Yeah, and that's the big thing about it. I agree.
So it gives it a lot of support without going super slow.
Yeah, like it's because the Shed Cell is going to be getting your mons in. And my favorite, I mean, it's very basic EV spread, but I like max speed, max HP. Like I want to be able to do as many things as I want. Like I'm sure there's some optimal ones, but like for example, being faster than a Roaring Moon. And being able to pass that sub to something, I think is really, really important. So
you could argue that you want to be slower than opposing Cyclizars, so you can Shed Tail second and see what they switch to.
And so we could do that. Like we could do that. So we could do 374. Which
is it not? Is Iron Valley the Ments Roaring Moon is a 370, so you can go down to 371.
Yeah, that works too.
Okay.
Is there something at 372 that I'm thinking of? Is there Zam in this metagame? Probably not.
I don't think so. No Zam, no Dougie.
Okay.
No Sceptile.
What base number?
I guess there is Dougie. Is Dougie not banned yet?
I don't think Arena Trap is allowed.
Oh, okay. Then...
And if it is, then nobody's been using it. I'll tell you.
That's yeah. I have to imagine that. Yeah. Let's save ourselves some time this generation. Yeah, and I would put the last 20 EVs in special defense specifically so you can make it rain from Goldengo better
Yeah.
in a one-on-one matchup.
Yeah, so like you're not always
Especially,
gonna be able to
against
rapid spin.
target.
Yeah, you're not always gonna be able to rapid spin because Godengo will come in. But if you can knock them off and get rid of their choice scarf and then shed tail to something, as well, beautiful.
Yeah. Or you turn out. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Get you
Yeah,
something.
I like U-turn the more I think about it, just because taunt is nice if you're trying to like prevent defog at all costs, but if you've got like a golden, so I guess it really depends.
And I mean, on this team specifically, I'm gonna say if we are gonna go spikes for the last one, we should probably go Goldengo as our one of our
I'm
Pokemon.
just thinking if we have the resists to handle things like water and fire.
So the thing
Um,
with that is we always have the Terra type as an option too.
that's very true. That's a perfect example of it.
Yep. So we'll figure that out. Like in this situation, for Cyclizar, I do want to do because we
We
did.
kind of have Cyclizar for that. Sorry, yeah, we do have Cyclizar to help with those. Yeah, for like what's the dark fire one? Chiyu?
Chiyu, yes.
Yeah.
So if we really want to, we could also Terra Dark type Dark on this, so we can obviously deal with Chiyu, like live a hit from Scarf Chiyu and knock it off, which will help us. And the other ones
do
I've
like
always
that.
liked is like Steel because you get the resistances to everything. Normal is fine too because you're immune to Dragon or you're normal to Dragon. But I think that in this situation, Dark or even Fairy might Fairy. The reason Fairy is pretty cool is because and it does give you the Steel weakness. But the reason Fairy is pretty cool is because we're immune to Dragon, we're resistant to Mach Punch as well, and we're resistant to Dark Pulse. So Fairy is like a Terra type we could potentially do with this guy as well. I don't think you'll always be Terra typing your Cyclizar, but if you're in a situation where Terra typing it allows you to get a free sub to somebody else and win the game, I think that Fairy is an option. But
Yeah, I think I like Dark or Fairy. Because Dark also lets you actually hit with knockoff pretty hard.
harder, yeah. Okay, let's
yeah.
go. Let's go Dark for that reason.
Yeah. Also, Dark I think will just have the extra ghost resist is you can't have too many. Or sorry, wait, no.
No, it is actually ghost
You
resist. It's the ghost. Yeah.
You maintain your ghost resist, or I mean, you lose your immunity, but you still resist it,
Yep.
as opposed to becoming neutral to it.
Yep, I like it. I like Dark. We'll talk about Corviknight later when we get to when we figure it out. But yeah, Fairy. I think Fairy is good just for the Moonblast spam. Dark is good here. Dark is good here. And we kind of have to figure out, okay, what is our hazard game and how do we want to deal with others as well. So again, when we look, I think we should definitely look at the spikes here. So with spikes and Stealth Rock, we can look at the combination of both, obviously, if we want to. Stealth Rock, spikes. Yeah. We have quite a few options here. You could argue that we could use Earthworm over Cyclizar because Earthworm also shed tails, but it doesn't have the regenerator. However, it does have an Earthquake immunity because it literally heals 25% on Earthquake. So because of Earth.
Oh, is that a Earth
That's
Eater?
Earth Eater. Yeah, that's Earth Eater.
Okay, Earthworm might be cool.
But
It's kind of slow though.
it's slow, and you usually only get one shed tail.
Yeah. I mean, 2 shed tails on the same team does sound kind of amazing. But I don't know that we need it that much. I think being able to like dart in and out of battle is going to be more important.
Yeah, and I feel like
It's
also
not
at
like
that point,
it's not like I think you gave me this one team where there's like a bunch of shed tail to like game-ending sweepers like Drum Azumarill.
yeah,
And this team is not like that. This team is not setting up those. The game is over sweepers.
yeah. So I don't think that works for us. Like the mons that I think make most sense for us would be Clodsire, just because it also gives us defensive backbone and has Unaware and stuff. Garchomp, just because it gives us fast spikes and Stealth Rock plus Dragon Tail. Glimora, because poison type that can also set up T-spikes for us if we want them. We don't need them, but also gets up Stealth Rock and Spike for us. And then Tinglu. While it is another dark week, it gets up Stealth Rock and Spike and also can phase out the opponent as well with Whirlwind. So we can get some little annoying situations going down there. But whatever Spike we choose, I'm going to be honest, I do think that we need to make Goldengo our last. Because we need the Scarfer, we need the default blocker, which is what it does. It blocks defog, it blocks rapid spin, it blocks mortar spin, and also we need to be able to trick something like set up Annihilate with Rage Fist or Pokemon that can kind of just straight up beat us, like if they set up. Whereas kicking them a Choice Scarf and then going into our defensive Corviknight plus whatever the other mon is to deal with them, I think it allows our team to do well. And as you mentioned before, it's a strong Scarfer that takes advantage of spikes too. So.
No, yeah, I agree. All right, yeah, I'm good with this.
All right, so I mean, I guess before we pick this, we might as well put Godengo then.
Yeah.
Because this one's already said, and we've already mentioned why we want Choice Scarf. Gives us some speed control. Takes, again, Good as Gold will block Spore. It will block Toxic. It will block Will-O-Wisp. It will block Leech Seed for whatever reason. It will block Defog, because all of those are considered status moves. So it blocks all of them, and then the standard set, you know, you look at your strong moves. Make It Rain. Did you know that 3 Make It Rain is stronger than 3 Flash Cannons?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Make It Rain is crazy.
Yeah. It's got its coins.
What about 2? 2 Make It Rain is still stronger, right?
Yeah. So I mean, you click 3 and you know you 120, then you -1, which is 80, then you go, you know, from there as well. But so Make It Rain, Shadow Ball. You typically want your Focus Blast, right? Because it's how you do it. King Bisharp. That's basically his name. It's basically his name, right? And then Trick.
Yeah.
And Trick allows us to, like I said, cripple those
Focus Blast
setups.
is also good for the fire one.
Chi-Yu, exactly. Yeah. And then something that this Pokemon would typically run is Terrestrialize type, either Ghost for its more offensive Shadow Ball spam, but in a situation where you want to be able to, and it keeps the spin block, but in a situation where maybe it comes down to King Gambit, which we do have this option for, but it could still be a little bit scary. Fighting Terrestrialization means that our Focus Blast actually, we can check Dark types, and we get stab on Focus Blast. So, like, even if we take, you know,
I like
multiple rounds
that.
of that,
Yeah, I think the flexibility is going to be important.
yeah, it gives us multiple rounds. I agree. And then, I mean, you can go Modish or Timid on this. Our team doesn't have any speed boosters with the boost energy and everything. So I kind of like the idea of just having the raw speed. And this at least been a speed tie. But I also think,
So, yeah.
I also think that we need to really figure out this last set, how we can make it work. Because this also gives us an Ice Shard resist, and if we can Terrestrialize into fighting, it also gives us the Sucker Punch resist from Qian Pao, which is a giant threat to our team. Right, and we can still then just knock it out with Make It Rain. So we have options. So I really like Godengo. I think it's a very big, it's a standard metagame Pokemon, and so we'll figure out Corvi in a bit. But these guys are good. I think these guys are good. Okay, what Spiker and what do you think best fits our team, bro?
I mean, my favorite is just Garchomp. It's so good. Not because like of any specific synergy, but just because it's fast and it's just generally so useful that you're in an actual battle situation, you are very happy that you have something with this much versatility and general excellence.
Yeah, and again, you might look at our team and be like, wow, your team is super weak to ice, but this guy Terra Darks, this guy Terra Darks, and this guy, we're not taking Ice Beams, right? We have the Resistance and we have Corviknight, so this even solidifies Corviknight even more.
I guess I would be a little afraid of it, so you could, you know, consider a different Spiker, but like what Spiker is going to be good against ice?
Well, if you look at Spikers, Fortress,
all,
but
like,
I don't think Fortress is that
type,
great.
right?
Yeah, I don't think
Fortress is not good.
Fortress isn't very like good anti-meta type of
I mean,
thing.
you could go with Glamora, I guess.
But if we did go Glamora, it does give us another Rapid Spin as well. I mean, Ting Lu is also going to eat every hit from every Pokemon ever.
Yeah.
Have you messed with this one?
Okay.
It reduces the special attack of other Pokemon by 25%.
I saw that. Yeah, I faced one earlier.
So this Mon can actually run like, and this will open up our team versus Chi-Yu, right? We can run Spadef on this, and we can actually move more towards a Fizdef Corviknight to help out our ice weakness a little more.
Okay, I think okay, no, I think this is better.
Yeah, because I feel like, and then again, this can give us. I mean, this thing is one of the few Mons. I don't know if you know what Ruination is, but it's basically Nature's Madness.
It's Nature's Madness, right? Yeah.
So like one of these standard sets that this thing would typically run would be like Spikes, Whirlwind, because it can phase, set up Mons, Earthquake, and then either Ruination or I've literally seen people run Stealth Rock Spikes Whirlwind because it's so annoying because Godengo is going to be blocking Defog. So even if Corviknight comes in, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's up to us like what we want to run. Do we want to run Stealth Rock Spikes? Do we want to run both? Do we even want to use this Pokemon? But I do think that our team is so weak to Chi-Yu.
I like this one, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like running Careful Nature, just max special defense, so we can literally deal with Chi-Yu makes the most sense.
I think so too.
And we run some leftovers. Vessel of Ruin. These Ruin abilities are so good.
They're insane. I know.
They're amazing. This also gives us a Godengo check as well, as it will easily be able to eat the hits from it. And then we can figure out our Terra type too with this as we go. I don't even remember what Terra type I run on this Pokemon whenever I use it. I use it all the time. Let me open it up. But what do you think in terms of hazards you want to do? Do you want to do both? Do you want to do
You
whirlwind?
got to do both. I don't know. You can't fit rocks anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay. Stealth rock. And I honestly think that while this really limits this Pokemon, it's just so good.
No, I think we just a generally good principle of team building is rather than trying to do too many things, just focus on doing or doing something really well.
Yeah.
Because then in an actual battle scenario, you are then focusing more on your own strategy, which is then supported well, as opposed to trying to, falling over yourself, trying to do a million things and not doing any of them well.
And this Pokemon actually gives us, like, if we terrestrialize into a different type, it gives us, like, we can go ground, for instance, and then we not worry about our fairy weakness, right? And this gives us outs versus, if we do end up going ground, this gives us outs versus Garganacl, which can set up. This gives us outs versus Annihilate, which can set up, because especially the Wrestle Chestal one is more threatening than the Taunt one. And it just being able to take hits and also being our Chi-Yu answer. Yeah, I agree. Like this Mon, it's meant to take the hits and then annoy the Pokemon. It's kind of like Garchomp with Dragon Tail over Whirlwind, literally. But it has better longevity in this scenario. So
no, I think this is perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll try this out. We'll see how this works. What Terra type are we thinking?
Well,
we want to make sure we're not weak to
fire,
dark.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Something to resist fire.
I think we can resist fire, but also not be weak to. I mean, water is generally just a good one, right?
Yeah.
Water.
I don't think we're going to be terrestrializing this one too often anyway. So, you know what we can do? I think we can generally just go with, like, water, and then we can, if we're, like, playing games and, like, oh, I wish we had the option to go to a different type, we could just change it.
Yeah, I mean, fairy is good, too, because we still resist fighting, and then we could also resist.
Oh, then yeah, perfect.
Maybe fairy plus resist fighting, resist dark still. It's not like it changed anything about our fire resists, right? But it still helps us out in that scenario. This mon's going to be so fun to use. And then I think because we're doing that, we can make Corviknight more physically defensive.
Yes, no, absolutely, because we need to handle the ice. Yeah.
Also, not to mention this mon with 514 HP will easily eat like a +1 Dragonite's Ice Spinner and stuff like that, and threaten it out. So we have this guy. Corviknight's. What are we thinking for its Terra type? I'm sure there's some EV spread we can go here.
Something to resist. What's stronger, Ice Spinner or the Dark Stab?
Ice Spinner and Dark Stab are both 80, and then Icicle Crash is 85.
Does it ever run Icicle Crash over Ice Spinner?
It does both. Yeah, more offensive Life Orb ones will run that. I do want to note that Goldengo. I just want to run one little calc on Goldengo Shadow Ball to make sure that we take it.
Steel, like being pure steel, is generally good, I think.
Not having that electric weakness is nice. I agree.
Yeah. I mean, losing your EQ immunity might suck.
No, we could also do Pure Flying.
Pure Flying might be nice.
Yeah,
I had a scenario earlier where I was, actually a couple times, where I was facing a Dragonite and being able to go Pure Flying and not be affected by fire, or not be weak to Fire Punch was really, really nice.
I like that. Let's try flying. We'll try flying, and then also one thing I want to note is I think we can run a little bit of special defense on this thing. That way, this thing doesn't knock us out with Stealth Rock, right? So Shadow Ball from Goldengo does 38 to 45% from just standard Goldengo. So by running, and this is just a damage calc, by running just a little bit, what is it? 40.
That's after Figgy Berry recovery.
Yeah, I would change the leftovers. You're right. Yeah. Sorry, it has the other ones. So this is a guaranteed 3 KO after leftovers. But I think if we run a little bit more to get it like, just for like one Stealth Rock switching plus one leftovers. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah.
So put Stealth Rock up on both sides using the damage calc. 38 to 45% guaranteed 3 KO. So we want to run just a little bit SPDF with that to make that down. Why is it not going up a little bit? I'm just seeing how much we can get away with without.
I would check versus Chin Pao first.
Yes, good idea. This is what we want our Pokemon to be able to deal with the Mon.
Yeah, that's the priority. Yeah, you just calc versus those ice crashes and.
Icicle Crash. Icicle Crash does 30 to 36, which means at +2. And
That's with a 0 defense, though.
that is with 0 defense. And also, let's make it life orb. Let's go like the worst case scenario for us, right?
Exactly. Does Chanpao ever run Choice Band?
Sometimes it does, sometimes it runs. Why is this not? That's no way it does that little. Why is it not running the calc right? Am I level 50 on this calc?
No.
Okay, wow. It's pretty. That's not correct. This is not.
That's
correct.
yeah. I would like double that.
Oh, it's just doubles. Okay. Yeah,
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it's double this. I'm pretty sure it's double this. Right.
Yeah.
So it should be between 90.
I mean, you also have like 0 defense right now anyway. So if you just go to like 216 or something.
316. It looks
Yeah,
like
so-
Qianpao. It looks like Qianpao is just not correct in the damage calc, unfortunately.
Chanpao broke the calc, yeah.
Yeah. So let's.
I think if you just assume it's double that, then you'll be able to take a +2 Life Orb Icicle Crash after rocks, which you should be higher than that anyway.
Yeah, 216 anyway. So like something like this.
If you're switching in, you'll get lefties, but it's always good to have some wiggle room.
Yeah, and I'll just run a little bit of special defense just with the Shadow Ball calc. Like it's not 22 was a jump play. I just run a little bit 44. I think 216, 248 is really fine.
That's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the team. So the only thing left is kind of just we picked all the Terra types. Only thing left is really just to play.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, hopefully you guys learned something from this. Obviously, it's a long video. It's always like an hour long, but we gave you some principles. You saw our thought process and how we changed it. Use the damage calc as well, but that damage calc is still a little wonky right now because they haven't updated.
The damage calc is your best friend because it will help you make so much more. Like even if the calcs themselves are not like revelations to you, I have like a whole video explaining this, by the way, because I feel so strongly about it.
Please subscribe to his channel.
Please do. Even if you even the act of doing the calc itself like opens up avenues in your brain because it means you're considering those options more. Just seeing the calcs, you're like, okay, well, this will do that much, so now I know for sure this and this scenario. So just get in the habit of using the calc and you will see so much better results.
Yeah, 100%. He's right. So use the damage calc, especially when it gets updated for this. Right now it's not, but once it gets updated for Gen 9, use it. It'll help you learn. It'll help you get better. And this was just a basic, quote unquote basic, 1 hour guide on, like it always is for us, on how to team build in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. If you did enjoy it, make sure you subscribe to me, subscribe to my boy BKC. We're gonna have a lot of content like this. We're gonna make more guys, especially as the metagame keeps going. But please sub to him, sub to me, and I'll be using this team at some point in the near future. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Later.